Good evening. It's Monday, May 6, 2024. Welcome to episode 61 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. On tonight's broadcast, we'll be covering homestead news, a Q&A segment, Did You Know?, the weekly poll with your choice of the homesteading skill you would most like to improve, and the main topic of the evening, hindsights from this homestead, where we will share some of the things that we may have done differently had we the benefit of knowing what we know now. We're also going to be unveiling a new segment tonight called Liberal or Conservative, where I will read you a quote, and it will be up to you to determine whether that person was liberal or conservative. And before the conclusion of the broadcast, I will reveal who that person is. But first, how are you this evening, Rebecca?
I am good. We spent this weekend watching our grandson show his hog, and he did a fantastic job for only his second year. Couldn't have asked for him to do any better. And it really took me back a lot of years, back when we were doing the fair with our kids and sitting in and listening to the auctioneer bidding the animals off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's something that actually kind of gets in your system. And it takes me back even further than when our kids were doing it, because I did it when I was a kid. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this place when we moved here and have animals so that our children could experience raising livestock, in the same way that I did. And yeah, it's pretty cool to see it come even further with the next generation and watching the grandkids get out there and do their thing. And yeah, he crushed it in showmanship. He took first in his heat, and then he came back the next heat, and he managed to make it all the way to the intermediate group. And he actually did pretty well in the intermediate group too. So hats off to him. He obviously did his homework and he's taking it seriously. So it's kind of fun to watch. I will have to say, for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely all business.
Yeah. Last week, we were absent, and I had every intention of going on, but I had just returned home from Tennessee, and I was extremely tired after having made the drive of nearly 2,500 miles and did so in 2 days. I left Tennessee Saturday at 1:00, and then I got home Monday at 1:00. And so I had about 5 hours in between when I got home to when we would have went on for a live stream. And I kind of thought, maybe I'll try to go on this week and we'll get people caught up to what we've been doing or whatever. But I was just broke off. I couldn't do it. And I'm glad that I didn't, quite honestly, because I wouldn't have been worth a damn. But
it actually took me by surprise when you walked in and you said, "Hey, we're going to do a live stream tonight." I'm thinking, you just drove so far. How can you even stay awake for that?
Right. No, it was pretty crazy. Put in some big miles and got to actually drive through tornado country, which was kind of cool. I always told myself, hey, I wouldn't mind seeing one of those up close sometime if it's out in a cornfield, not if it's ripping through somebody's community, but if it's one, passing through a cornfield, it'd be kind of cool to actually see. And I almost got my wish, because the night that I was in Kansas City, I was driving through the storm. That was at the same time going through that Oklahoma, where they had that town that was destroyed. I was a part of, that storm that was coming through. And so it was a pretty wild night for me, a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning. And for whatever reason, I decided to sleep like a baby. It wasn't really a problem for me. I wasn't too concerned with it, but it's not really much you can do when you're kind of in that sort of a thing. But going down to Living Free in Tennessee, I was spending some time down in the holler with Nicole Sauce and crew. Got to see Mama Sauce and visit with her. Got to hang out with Tactical Redneck and Nighthawk and the whole crew. And it was, it's always worth my while whenever I go to some event like this. There's always something that you get out of it. And for me, that I get the most is just the opportunity for relationships and meeting people. I was able to reacquaint with some people that I had run into and met at other events, but I also met a lot of new people too. So that was really cool. And the one thing that I really told Nicole that I appreciated was just her event, how it has just more of a feel that you can spend time more meaningfully with people. It's a little bit of a smaller event. It's more intimate, and you can certainly take the time to get a chance to go up and talk to people. And I made a real effort to do that, because if you're not willing to do that, it's not going to come your way. So it's really to your advantage not to be a wallflower. When you go to these sort of events, you have to reach out and to try to, make those connections. But yeah, it was super cool. I was gone for 8 days. Let me check one thing here, guys. Hold on one second. Hey, what's up, London?
London.
Yeah, good to see you, man. We just shipped out your soap today. Shipped out your soap, and we'll be following that up with an email, because there's some details there that we wanted to tie in with you. But we really appreciate the support, man. That's pretty cool. And we hope you enjoy the soap. We actually sent you out an additional bar for you to try too. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good evening. And yeah, I was gone for 8 days. And what I learned after being gone for 8 days is that, man, things exploded around here.
Grass grows.
Man, it grows fast, especially this time of year. If I had been at a different time of year, it really wouldn't have gotten ahead of me that much. But I came back and I was almost like my jaw dropped, because the lawns were just exploded. And then all of the pastures had just really, really taken off. And for us here, that's a real issue, because once it starts to cure, then of course it's a fire hazard. And so that's one of the things that I've really been working on this past week, is just trying to get some of those fire breaks in and dealing with the weed abatement issue, because we're just not running as many livestock as we used to. And it's taking longer to feed off those pastures. And so I've been concentrating on trying to, make sure that we don't have any of those fire issues, because it's a real problem around here on some years. But Rebecca filled in as usual. And yeah, she always does a fantastic job. Did you come up with any issues? I guess I was going to ask, what were some of the issues you came up with, if you did, and how'd you resolve them?
Well, I did. I went out to move the sheep, and not all of them were in the tractor. And so there was one who managed to get herself out, and I was not sure how I was going to get her back in. Well, for one, I didn't even know how she got out. Mm-hmm. But the bottom portions of them lift up to be able to move the tractor around. And so it came to my conclusion is that she must have pushed and got that one of the sides up and was able to squeeze herself out. Now, I didn't get that from the first time she did it. I got that after the third time she came out. Fortunate for me, I pinned up the one side and I kind of chased her around the tractor a little bit. And luckily, she ducked under and went back in. So that's how I managed to get her back. And then had talked to you and let you know about that. And you had told me to drive some stakes in. And even doing that, she managed to get out one more time. And I still am not sure how that happened. But I just ended up making sure that I put those stakes in really close to the sides. And that seemed to work. So that was one issue. And then one of the babies, the smallest baby, managed to get its head stuck its head through the cattle panel and was crying like crazy. I went out there to see what was happening and went in, kind of pinned the little lamb between my legs and kind of jiggled her head and pulled it back through. And it wasn't too long after I walked away, she turned around and did it again.
Yeah, she had her head stuck this morning again too. So I didn't tell you about that, I don't think. But yeah, she's out of here tomorrow. And that's not the reason why. It's just that's part of that. Let me say that's part of the reason why she's going to be out of here tomorrow. But she's just one of those animals that from day one, she's been a little hot. And it's just one of those types of animals that if they were to get out, you probably wouldn't catch them. And I don't need animals around here like that. So we're going to load her up tomorrow and take her to the auction, get her out of here. But
But she just kept doing that the whole time you were gone. As soon as I'd walk away, she'd stick her head back there and she would cry the whole entire time until I walked out, and then she'd pull her head out.
Yeah.
She'd jiggle and get herself unstuck.
Right. Yeah.
But
I've often said, and I'm a firm believer of this, there's too many good animals out there to keep ones that aren't so good. And, you know, in my opinion, I don't think she's going to amount to much. Certainly the temperament and her behavior doesn't fit, and it's not in accordance with what I want to have around here. So you just need to kind of sometimes make that determination, and we'll ship her and get some money for her, and somebody else can have her.
Yeah, I had to tell her, I said, you know, when you were born, you were so tiny, you were so cute. I really, really liked her. And that started wearing extremely thin.
Yeah. Well, unlike those other two will come up to you and just rub on you, and, you know, they're really tame and gentle. And those are the type of animals, again, that I want to have around here. And animals that put their head up and then they start looking around, and they get everybody else excited when they're like that. And those are the ones that, like I say, they got to go. So she's got to here tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's all the issues you had, that's pretty minor. I like to hear that.
That wasn't bad. I mean, other than, you know, the chickens following you around, and but they do that regardless if you're here or not.
Yeah. 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 What's up, Dean Mullis? How are you, man? Hope everything's good with you, and hope life's carrying you well. London, you say that you're interested about this Pine to Palm sticker, and that sticker is something that I got. It's just a magnet that they give you when you finish this particular race. They usually give you a bunch of swag. They'll give you a t-shirt or mugs and, you know, belt buckles, generally speaking, for 100-mile races. But that was a race that I ran last September. It was called the Pine to Palm 100 miler. And it's a pretty no joke race. It's like 20,000 vertical feet, 20,000 up, and about 20,000 of descent as well over a course of 100 miles. And I ran that last year, and I was able to avenge a DNF, which DNF stands for did not finish. And I don't like having things that I don't finish. And so I wound up going back last year to avenge that loss. And that's what that sticker is, Pine to Palm. It's up in Ashland, Oregon. Yeah. So
too bad you didn't have the picture. Our dog just recently was walking around with this hanging out of her mouth.
Yeah. I think I was actually going to post an Instagram post or something with that. It's ridiculous, man. Our dog walks around. She's got like, she goes in her hamper and grabs our stuff, you know, grabs your underwear or bras or whatever. And then she was standing there with that thing just hanging out of her mouth. So it's kind of wacky. But yeah, I've really just been trying to getting caught up on content as well. You know, everything was behind, having been gone for, 8 days, but I actually prefer to drive if I have the opportunity. I like to see where other people live. I like to see, and honestly, I like to be a little bit more in control of the whole thing. I don't like getting into a tube with wings and turning everything over to somebody else. To me, that feels a lot like getting on the back of a motorcycle, and I don't much care for that when somebody else is driving. So I'll do it. I've flown, and I will probably fly again. But, you know, if I have my choice and I have the time to do that, I'm going to opt for, you know, being in control and setting my own schedule and doing things according to how I want to do them when I want to do them. That just makes the trip and the experience that much more, interesting. And it also I just like doing it that way. So, I wanted to talk about this deal that I got coming home. I got a text. I was about an hour and 10 minutes away from home because I was getting gas, and I get this text, and the text was from the feed mill where I get my feed. And he basically was texting me saying, "Hey, I got this feed for you if you want it. It's a good deal." And I've made video on this before, but it's really important, guys. If you're actually looking to save money, go to the mill where you're going to save money to begin with, and then strike up conversation with the people that are running it and see if you can't establish some kind of a relationship with them so that you can get the stuff that they really don't want to sell, or the stuff that they're going to sell at a little reduced cost. So like their floor sweepings or different types of screenings that they're not going to put directly into their feed, but they're still completely viable feed. I got just shy. It was like 1,160 pounds is what I chose. He had different amounts that I could have gotten. But I got 1,160 pounds of basically cornmeal. It was ground corn, pretty clean stuff. Not a lot of wings in it or anything. And would we pay $170? It was 15 cents a pound. So what that's going to do for me is that's going to extend the life of the feed that I have. Not only is it going to allow me to supplement the pigs that I might feed, or the steers that I might feed, or the chickens that we're feeding, because we can add that to their feed. Can use it for all kinds of things. Use it for chicken scratch. It's just great to have that sort of resource on hand, but you can finish out animals with that kind of corn. And so it's pretty cool when you establish those relationships, and so always be looking for that sort of thing.
Yep. The chickens had it tonight, and they didn't seem to have any problem with it whatsoever.
No, I gave them some of the stuff that fell out of the bag earlier today, and they were just, they were beside themselves. So I want to let you know that, Rebecca, I actually took it off the site yesterday because I didn't want people to order soap and then we not have enough to fill the order, because we actually went through quite a bit of it in between going to Tennessee. I took soap with me there, and we also have been selling soap off the site, and it kind of got ahead of us a little bit. We just shipped that out to, an order out today, but last night I took it off the site. Although you probably still have some bars, I guess, right?
Yeah, I believe I have four.
Yeah,
four bars available right now.
Right.
But I'm in the process of making more.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you talked about you want to get better at is the production and picking that up and getting it processed a lot quicker.
Yeah. It's I guess a learning curve for us. This isn't the first time we've sold soap and all these sort of things. So we're trying to, meet the demands of whatever people have, and we appreciate the support. But I didn't want to have somebody order, 5 or more bars, and then, then what do you do? Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have the soap. So she's making it. We'll let you know when it's back up and available. But
I do appreciate any of the support. That's wonderful.
Right, for sure. Blame the dog when the bras are laying about the living room. Good tip.
Well, they have been laying about the living room.
Yeah. She's a big help on that for sure.
Or socks, or underwear, or
right,
slippers, or anything if you're not paying attention to her.
Right. I got a question here from Anas Azul. It says, I want to buy some chickens for fertilizer and eggs, but what is your advice to me before I buy them? I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for on that question. Chickens for fertilizer. What do you mean by that? Oh, you mean just their manure, in other words. So you're looking to raise chickens and use their manure and all those sort of things. Yeah. I mean, I would just learn about what you're actually looking to get, right? There's a lot of different types of chickens. How are you planning on housing those chickens? How many do you want to have? What type of breeds are you most interested in? Are you looking at something that's an egg layer? Are you looking at something that's for meat production? You're looking at something for dual purpose. There is a tremendous amount of things that you can, as far as from the standpoint of breeds that you can get to meet your specific demands. But again, you would need to know what it is you're going to be doing with these chickens. Are you doing a coop and run? Are you doing a free range type of a setup, or what is your plan? So it's hard to actually give you solid advice on what to do other than just do more research, find out what is going to suit you, because people keep chickens in all different types of ways and use them for all different types of purposes. You can go on, and if you haven't done so already, and just go on some of my videos and see kind of what I'm doing here, and you might glean some ideas from that. It may not suit you what I'm doing here, but again, you'll know what not to do or know what you don't want to do. So just go out and maybe watch some videos that people have and try to get some ideas as far as what might fit best into your environment. I don't know much about your land and all those specifics. So that's what I recommend. Let's see here. What did we use for a shopping cart? Shopping cart. I'm assuming, Dean, you're referring to. I'm assuming that you're referring to on our website, our shopping cart, and I don't know exactly what you want to know from there. I mean, we use Square is who we're using, but beyond that, I don't know how to nail that question down for you. Yeah, from the standpoint of eggs, yeah, I would certainly recommend getting egg layers rather than dual purpose, because they're specifically going to lay eggs, and that's what they're designed to do. We've been very happy with the breed that we have, which is Novagen Browns. There's other good egg laying breeds out there, but again, it's whatever's going to work best for you.
Well, we've had some other breeds.
Oh yeah,
I think the ones that we have found to be consistent is the Novagen Brown.
Yeah, and there's other Novagens too. There's not just the Novagen Brown. There's Novagen Whites, and there's like 5 different like versions of the Novagen, and I haven't tried them all. I've only tried the Novagen Brown, so I imagine they're probably pretty good too, because they're specifically designed for egg laying. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm pretty behind around here. It feels like somewhat, but I'm getting caught up. And one of the areas that I'm somewhat behind is in the garden planting and stuff. It's really the time when you want to start putting things in the ground right now, so that you can get the growth, and you don't want to wait too late, start planting things too late. I do have tomatoes in. I've got my potatoes were planted some time ago, and they're really coming on now. But I want to plant some of the other annuals that I'm interested in planting, and I've just been a little bit behind. Today I did actually plant some basil, so you'll be glad to know that. But
pesto's one of my favorites, so I'm always excited when he plants basil.
Right? Yeah, we grow a pretty nice little plot of basil, and it does pretty well with the setup that we have for it. We get a really good yield out of that every year, and it's just a fantastic herb that I always want to be able to grow, because I do love pesto and everything else that you can do with basil for sure. Well, let's see here. Dean says, why is that not showing up on the thing? Oh, there it is. Wait a minute. I think I'm doing something wrong here. Hold on, guys. Let's see. Okay. It says, okay, we use Square at the farmer's market. Did not know that they offered an online shopping cart. Yeah, that's who we use on our website is Square. And so, they have a Square reader as well. And it sounds like that's what you're using. Let me see if I can't get to your question later. I'll see if I can highlight that and then get to your question later before we end. Anas, Azul. I wanted to get right to this new topic that we were going to unveil tonight, which is liberal or conservative. And so it's probably going to be a quote from a political figure, because I don't know if I can assign whether somebody's liberal or conservative 100% unless they're a politician. So this is a politician, and this politician said this, and leave it up to you guys to determine, was this coming from a liberal or was this coming from a conservative? But it says, Israel has the right to shell Palestinian hospitals and schools out of self-defense. I'll read that one more time. Israel has the right to shell Palestinian hospitals and schools out of self-defense. What do you think of that, Rebecca?
I think it's just plain wrong.
You think?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a war crime, right? I mean, bombing indiscriminately people who aren't involved in the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to think that one of our politicians actually said such a thing, but
Not surprising, though.
it almost kind of is, because I mean, that's pretty, when you think about it.
I think if
It's
you
not
would
just rhetorical. It's not just rhetoric that they're throwing around. If they actually truly mean that, that's kind of evil, don't you think? People laid up in a hospital bed,
it's
and
very
it's okay.
evil.
It's okay to bomb that so your side can win. I don't know. Anyhow,
It's very evil, but over the years and the way things are turning out, that's where it's not surprising to me.
yeah, it's an interesting thing, but I just wanted to throw that out there and then give you guys some time to ruminate on that one. And by the end of the broadcast, we will unveil who that fine individual is with such a fine quote. I wanted to get into some Q&A, but if you can go grab my phone, or actually it's in my back pocket. You don't have to do that. I'll just grab for myself. I guess I wasn't prepared on that one. Let's see here. Let me pull up some questions. I have a number of them. And we are going to start with a question about wood chips, and it's from Joe Z 54. And he says, enjoy your video and content. Over the last 3 months, I've been using wood chips and found it much better than anything I've used so far. My previous coop had a dirt floor, and I found deep bedding using mulch was even better. But now with my trailer coop conversion with wooden floor, the wood chips are best. When the wood chips were dumped off, I just used them whenever we had dry weather for a few days. I have a question about the wood chips. In my pile, I notice a white mold and it is very wet. Will this dry out, or is it turning to mulch? Happy chickening and stay well, Joe Z. And so I basically just responded to him in this way and said that I agree. Wood chips have more longevity than other bedding options, not to mention they are free and readily available in most areas. The white mold you are seeing may very well be mycelium, which is a fungus and vital for the decomposition of woody organic plant material. If it is a dry, powdery fungus, it is not harmful, but if you are concerned, you can either remove it altogether or cover it with fresh mulch. Good luck. And after I gave him that response, I started to think about the response that I gave, because he said that it was wet. So it probably wouldn't be airborne at the time when he's moving it. However, it can become airborne later on. One thing I will cite, that white mold typically is not something that you're going to find as being too harmful. There's a lot of different molds out there. There's a lot of different molds that might be harmful. And there's a lot of good resources out there too, which can kind of guide you to telling you, like, this color might be okay. This color is probably good. This color is definitely not good. And so it's just kind of a good idea to know about those sort of like differences in mold. But anytime you have wet, dark, and organic, it's going to develop mold. And so that's what you'll find in these sort of wood chip piles. It's not uncommon. It's not super harmful. But one thing I would encourage people to do is, if you are moving this stuff around and you're in an enclosed environment, maybe you might want to consider just protecting your respiratory tract, because, it's probably not the best thing to be breathing, no matter what color it is. So that's essentially what I would, basically say on something like this. It's very common that you're going to find that in wood chip piles. Certain colors, again, are problematic, but I really typically don't see anything like that in my wood chip pile. It's your standard whites and your browns and maybe your green, which is, again, that's not super uncommon. What would be uncommon is something like red. That's different, right? black, generally speaking, not so great. And so when you start seeing those sort of colors, that would be of concern. But other than that, I wouldn't give it too much credence as far as being harmful. Next question is from Gary Wolf, and it's regarding leaves. He says, love leaves for compost and winter cover for the garden. Problem is, I just don't get enough. I live in an area that doesn't have a collection site and not a lawn service that collects and dumps off in my area. And basically, I just said, same here. I'm living in a rural area, and my leaf collection efforts are generally planned around days when I travel to the city for other reasons. It is not most convenient. It is not the most convenient collection method, but 30 minutes of loading a 2,500 pound feed sack can be enough to last the entire winter for my compost yard. That's how I approach the leaf collection issue, from the standpoint of, I take leaves from this property, I collect them and I use them, but I like to have more than that, generally speaking, for my composting efforts. And so I'll make an effort to try to bring in additional. Some places have leaf bags, right? You may have seen guys doing that with videos and stuff like that, where they have these like paper, bags. They almost look like a feed sack type of a thing, but they're like a brown paper bag and biodegradable and all that sort of thing. People set those out, and then the city department will come by and pick them up or whatever. In some areas, that's pretty common. I typically shy away from those sort of things because I don't know what's in the bag. You'll find dirty diapers. You'll find friggin' anything in those bags. And so I prefer to collect leaves that I can assess what's in the pile. And I take generally from the top of the pile, right? I don't want to get the road grime and all the hypodermic needles and all the bullshit at the bottom. I'd like to assess what I'm bringing back onto my property rather than just collecting those leaf bags. But we don't really have that here. I have to go elsewhere to get that because we live in a rural area. Let's see here. Let's go to the next question, which is, this is from user JV6WZ. And it says, would your chickens fly over the netting if you didn't clip their wings? Ours could easily get over the garden fence and eat all the greens, but I strung laundry line atop the fence, and something about that makes them not even try. My guess is that they can't see it well enough to aim. Breed personality probably plays a role. Our leader is a Buff Orpington.
We had one of those.
Yeah, we've had a few of those. They're not really flighty birds. Buffs don't want to fly too much because they're kind of just like, whatever. They're dual purpose and they're not really a flighty bird. But I basically just told him, I said, I generally only clip wings of the birds that have demonstrated a willingness to fly outside of their confines. I said, you are correct that breed characteristics play a role in chickens' ability to fly or the desire to fly. I find it usually only necessary with younger birds that haven't developed a sense of where home is and are testing their boundaries. And that's generally what I do. I don't clip their wings out of just routine clipping their wings. They have to demonstrate that they don't want to stay in the chicken yard or stay where I've got them on pasture. And so when I putting younger birds typically, they might fly outside of that, and until they learn, hey, this is where they're supposed to be, I will clip their wings just to keep them from, escaping their confines. But generally speaking, I don't, because it's really nice to have those wings if they needed to evade a predator. And so I don't want to debilitate them or make them so that they're not able to defend themselves by clipping their wings just arbitrarily. It's only in selected situations. Let's see here. What's up, Bruce? How are you, man? Good to see you, brother. You are very welcome, Sandra. Appreciate it. Appreciate the comments. Nice. You like this channel, very grounded. Well, you haven't been here very long.
You have to hang around while he goes off.
Yeah. I'm being
on a
I'm being
subject.
calm right now. Wait till I get fired up on a good topic, and you'll be like, man, this guy, man, I don't know. Yeah. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. What's up, Tim Riley? How are you? Atrides, man. What's up? Seasonal chickens. Atrides says, what do you think about seasonal chickens? Raise 20 meat birds, process them, and then rest for a season. For sure. Why not? That's the beauty of meat birds, right? You're done in like 9 weeks from the time you get them to the time you're, processing them. If you're, doing something like a Cornish cross or whatnot, you're going to have to do something longer for maybe your Red Rangers or other meat bird type breeds or whatever. But that makes total sense, man. You're only feeding them for a few weeks, and then you got chicken in the thing. It's perfect. I think that's perfect.
I love the name.
Mean old lady.
Yes.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the I put it out at Halloween. It says a wicked old witch lives here.
Yeah. This last question is it's more of a comment than a question, quite honestly, but it's about a video that I just posted. And this was a video on a beef being slaughtered. And this was from Green Thumb Gardening, had made this comment and said, wow, for a city slicker who has never seen the process of home processing of beef, that was very impressive. Watched videos of slaughterhouses, but that just makes it more respectful of where our food comes from. Thanks for sharing. And, that actually made me happy when he said that, when he left that comment, because I said, right on, you are exactly who this video was intended for. I believe in showing the entire process from start to finish. Many people have a misunderstanding of the process or a lack of understanding of what it takes to get an animal from farm to fork. Glad you liked the video, and thanks for your comment. And if that's the only person that watched the video and got something for it, that's totally worth it to me, because that's what that video is intended for. Is because I know that there's people who haven't seen that sort of thing, and they have a misperception of what takes place when an animal is slaughtered. And as you can see, that animal, he didn't even know what came. He had no idea. And it was just like lights were out. There was no stress. I would say, some people say that animals only have one bad day. That animal didn't even have one bad second. He was at home, and now he's back home.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of a ranch kill.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was no stress to it. I mean, I think that people, again, have a misperception, because I posted another video, and this was a hog butchering video. And let me tell you, that one is pretty gnarly looking for people that's never seen that. It's not to somebody who's witnessed that, because they know that all of that moving around that the animal's doing is just involuntary. They're not, it's the brain isn't functioning. When you shut the light switch off, the body's still going to move. That's what happens in a lot of kills. There's still going to be that involuntary movement. And I was actually pretty surprised on that last video, the hog butchering one, that it wasn't more people freaking out and going, oh, this is the worst thing they've ever seen. I had a lot of positive comments where people were like, this was awesome. I love seeing that. And again, that's why I'm doing it, guys, because I'm not getting paid for that. I didn't monetize that video because I know that it wouldn't be advertiser friendly. I'm not doing that video to make money. This video isn't monetized. I'm not doing that to make money. I'm doing that to educate people so that they can see what takes place. What kind of actually pisses me off is that some people, they have no problem going to Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out Burger or Burger King. But, I can't watch that. What the hell are you talking about? You're wearing leather shoes and you got a problem with an animal being slaughtered. You can't even see how that animal got to your table, but you have no fucking problem eating it. That kind of stuff actually kind of pisses me off a little bit, right? You're so far removed from reality. You can't even watch something like that. And so again, I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people don't like to see that sort of thing, and that's why I put that warning at the start of it. But I found it interesting too. That other video where the pig's flopping around. No problem from YouTube. They're actually serving that to a lot of people. That video continues to grow because they're recommending it to people. This video has an age restriction on it. So if you're under 18 years of age, you're never going to see that unless somebody shares it to you. So that's what I would say. If you think somebody would benefit from seeing a video like that, or you know somebody who might enjoy seeing where their food comes from, share the video. But again, that's what I just wanted to say on that, because it's pretty interesting to me that people are so detached from their own food. So you have anything to say on that?
I would say that our kids used to ask when they were growing up, what color was the paper that the meat came in? And they wanted to know if it was clear or if it was white. And when they were younger, they wanted it clear. Once they found out and started showing animals and everything else, they wanted their meat to come in the white paper.
Yeah. What's this plastic on my meat, man? This isn't how it's supposed to be. Yeah. No, it's 100% right. Old lady says it's easier than being taken out in the wild by another animal, much more humane. 100%, man. You ever seen how, what happens when another animal's predating another animal? They're eating them alive. And so this is very humane, and I feel good about it. I feel good about raising my own food in this way because I know that it was ethically treated. I know how it was raised. I know what went into it. And it's just a circle of life, man. You have much more reverence, I think, personally, for the animal when you have a hand in, its own raising and then its own ultimate demise. It allows you to
taste far better.
Oh man,
way better.
Nothing like it. Yeah.
On top of that, everything about that animal is used in more things than a lot of people are not aware of.
Oh yeah. That's a whole nother episode right there.
Yeah,
it's a whole nother show. Bruce asks, do you mind if I ask the cost for that service for the beef? I don't mind at all. It was $225, which is gone up, but everything, of course, has gone up in this fantastic economy that we have right now. And so he charges $200 for the kill and $25 for the fuel charge. So it's $225, and it wasn't that. Cut and wrap actually went up quite a lot, which kind of I'm not so good with. I wish I could actually process my own beef, but it's a lot, man. It's a lot of animal to be working on, right? Especially when you're not super skilled at it. It ain't like I'm some butcher. And it would be great, but that's a lot of meat, man. But it is very impressive to see a professional who does that sort of thing, for a living. And he's known in the area as Frank the Kill Guy. That's how he actually introduces himself. Hey, this is Frank the Kill Guy. Well, you can probably see why. He doesn't mess around, dude. There's no missed steps. It's all efficient with that guy. So it's pretty cool to watch, Yeah. Let's see here. I got to get to this question right here. Sanders says, I live in a rural farm community and we are real people who this way for many, many, many years. I love this way of life. In some countries, they are making fake beef. That is scary.
That's very scary.
Yeah. I think they're kind of trying to push that sort of thing here, but it's not really going over well so much. And I think it's going to the only way that they're going to be able to implement something like that is to make it so that beef is such an extremely hard commodity to get. They're going to try to harm the producers and make it more hard for them to actually raise beef for people to consume. I think that's the only way that they're going to get people to comply with eating something that isn't real and it's manufactured, because people know the difference, man. I mean, they've tried to roll out this fake meat, and it's just not okay. People are smart about what they put in their body mostly. Yeah, he's like a Ginsu ninja for sure. Old Frank the Kill guy. Well, hey, let me get to the weekly poll, and I appreciate everybody chipping in on that. I had 212 votes that were cast, and I asked, which one of these skills would you most like to learn more about? And those skills were off-grid, food preservation, animal processing, gardening, or herbal remedies. And I was actually, I don't know if I was surprised, but maybe a little bit surprised. I figured it would be kind of a difficult choice because these are all really, I think, good skills for people to know that are in the homesteading / self-reliance type communities. And so, I mean, I don't know, what would you pick of those, Rebecca? Which would you like to know more about?
For me, probably the food preservation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind learning more about generally all of these. But let me let you know how this all broke down. It was actually really close, and at the bottom was off grid, was 10%, food preservation 17%, 20% of the people chose animal processing, and there was a tie at the top between gardening and herbal remedies with 26% of the vote. So that was actually really, really close, I think. I was a little surprised by that, sort of, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, we're going to move on to Did You Know? And that would be your segment, Rebecca.
Yes. Did you know that most of the nursery rhymes that the sing-song nursery rhymes that we sing to our kids and they continue to repeat have a much darker side to them? So the one that I'm going to use as an example is Ring Around the Rosie. And the ring is actually the rash that came from the bubonic plague in 1665. And the posies are what they carried in their pockets to kind of cover up, don't shake your head, kind of cover up the odor of those sores. And the ashes all fall down, are the people who died. Basically, it's about death. So they lost in England close to 15% of their population
with the bubonic plague.
Yeah. But yet it's a nursery rhyme that we sing and very happily teach our children.
Yeah, that's kind of macabre, man. I mean, that's some like dark stuff right there. And I guess it is interesting because I didn't know that, and I've known of that nursery rhyme and have sung it when I was a kid, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of whack.
It is. The other one that I found interesting, and I can't verify that this is an actual truth because this particular nursery rhyme has a lot of variations, different theories for people. But this is Jack and Jill Went Up the Hill. And one of the theories is that around the French Revolution, Louis XVI and his wife, Marie Antoinette, it is about them being convicted of treason and being headed. And that is the...
Beheaded, you mean?
Beheaded, yes. And that is the Jack loses his crown and Jill comes tumbling after.
Huh. He loses his crown. Or
well,
did he lose his head?
Yes. They both lost their heads. But in the song...
Yeah, that's weird that kids are still singing that stuff today, and there's some kind of a
history. He falls down and breaks his crown,
right?
And Jill comes tumbling after.
Right.
So there's that, and there's also the theory of that it was Jack and Gil which referred to alcohol measurements. And it was then changed to Jack and Jill. But the measurements of people becoming very hostage, I can't even talk, very upset because they were trying to tax alcohol.
Huh. Okay.
So that's another theory to the Jack and Jill, but still it has a dark side because
right.
that caused, rioting and
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
violence.
Interesting.
But that's just a couple of them, a lot of them. And even if you don't look into the dark side of it and you just listen to the words of some of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Funnily enough, the worst strain of the Black Death came from Wuhan, China. Huh. Yeah, there's a lot that comes from Wuhan, China, sounds like. Oh, man. Nursery rhymes are dark. Jack and the Beanstalk, a.k.a. Nephilim. Yeah, I mean, this is all new to me, man. I was just a sheltered child, and I went along with all of these things that we were told as children, and I didn't question whether or not there was some dark, nefarious thing behind the nursery rhymes. But, I guess that's what we learn when we look into things, right?
How about there was an old lady who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread, whipped them all soundly and sent them to bed. So even if you don't know the dark side to it, just those lyrics are dark in themselves.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think we will get to the main topic of the evening, you guys. And tonight's main topic is homestead hindsight. And Rebecca and I were talking about some of the mistakes that we wish we had considered or done differently. And that's kind of the origin for this topic. And, we've been on our property for 23 years. And the old adage of hindsight being 2020 is certainly appropriate. And, I think it's appropriate not only because it's easier to analyze and evaluate situations when looking back upon them with perfect, clear vision, but also because the year 2020 was actually a watershed moment for me personally. I learned a lot of things in 2020 and had some of my beliefs that I held radically changed, but also some of the preconceived notions that I had were confirmed, I would say. And I've said this before, and I firmly believe that the government's response to the pandemic was a positive in many ways for me personally. Because a lot of the things that Rebecca and I are doing right now, a lot of the things that we're doing in our lives today is a result of what they did, is what result of their response. And our approach, I guess, to preparedness and the things that we're doing to become more self-reliant, as well as the people that I've met, both here in our local community, but also people that I've met all over the country with some of the travels that I've been able to take part in, going to these different festivals and stuff like that. And also the content that, we're producing on this channel has in many ways been a result of what they've done and is a part of the hindsight that we now have. But, as it relates to this homestead, there's a number of things that I can look back upon and think that maybe we should have done things maybe a little differently had we known. Whenever you select a property, there's always things that you might like to have that the home doesn't have, but yet you're forced in some way to make certain compromises and concessions. And so it's not really all that uncommon that you don't start out with the perfect homestead. You don't start out with things perfect in every way. And this property for us, it was a compromise. right? Where she liked the house. I mean, she really liked the house and the pool and all of that sort of stuff. And I was more focused, quite honestly, on the land itself. I was interested in finding land that had great soil, good class 1 soil and irrigation and all of those sort of things, and cross fencing. And I was more interested in finding a property like that because I could run livestock on it. And that was my focus. I will say that the house that we eventually settled on and we live in now is one that I love this house, right? It's not that I didn't like the house. It's just that wasn't my focus going in. I had a different thing that I was actually focused on. She wanted the house and I was like, okay, well,
I grew up in the area and I knew how hot it got.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the reason for wanting the pool, because I just knew that it got to 115, could get up to 118 in the summers, and a pool would be really nice.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's great, man. It's great having it. It's another water source. Think about that. There's a lot of gallons of water there that can be filtered if need be. That's another one of my water sources that I rely upon should I need to rely upon it.
Something more for me to keep clean.
I know, she's the pool person. I don't mess with pools, man. She's good at doing the chemicals and working on the all the pump and all that sort of thing. She's all about it, which is good because I'm not going to be doing the pool. I got enough to do around here. So
besides that, you decided to help me one time and you cleaned out the filter and put the basket in backwards. And so everything that was supposed to come out and go into this basket was backing up. That's
not surprising. I don't know my way around that pool, just like I don't know my way around the kitchen. It's, I got to look like, what's in this drawer? If I'm trying to make something, that's just the reality of it. I'm not like, that's not my spot. That's her spot. But, yeah, one of the things I guess that I didn't know of prior to 2020 was permaculture. I first learned of permaculture through listening to the Survival Podcast with Jack Spirko. That was the first time I'd actually heard of permaculture, and I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. I like what I'm hearing here. And from the standpoint of land management and property design, it's changed the way that I think about this property and how it's set up and how I interact with this property. And I suppose if I had the most basic understanding, the most rudimentary, understanding of zone design, permaculture zone design, when we first moved here, it would have really prevented me from making some of the mistakes that I've made. And so I guess just to give somebody who doesn't know what permaculture zone design is, just kind of a thumbnail sketch of it, essentially. It breaks your property up into 5 zones, and the most frequented zone is zone 1. So the places that you go and travel most every day, right outside your front door or your back door, is your zone 1. And the corridors and places that you travel to a certain point, your zone 1 doesn't have to be circular. It doesn't have to be this elliptical expansion of zones. It can be elongated if that's your route of travel. So, but anyhow, it goes and it progresses sequentially on up to zone 5, where zone 5 is going to be the least frequented or on essentially the furthest reaches of your property. And, I suppose if I had just had that basic understanding when we moved here and set things up accordingly, as far as making sense for the efficiency of the flow on this property, it would have changed a lot about how I set this property up, because I guess we kind of almost in some ways had like a blank slate here. It was mostly just the house, the garage, the
very few trees,
the pool,
no fencing.
Yeah, the pool. Well, we had a perimeter fence, but it all was shitty, and I had to pull it out and redo it, and then I put in cross fencing and all that sort of stuff. But there was no like real structures other than the house, the garage, and that sort of thing. But yeah, it would have probably saved a lot of time and money just having that concept of of permaculture zone design. And what I would say to a person who is looking to maybe buy a piece of property or is new at this and is just figuring out this raw piece of land, how do I set things up? We're going to build this house, or it's got a house already on it, and we're going to do the thing. Now we've got our property, outside of the matrix, and we're going to live and be homesteaders, right? If you're that person just moving in, I would suggest that you just basically learn the minimum concepts regarding zone design and to try to gather a basic understanding of what permaculture is. What's the prime directive? What are the ethics? What are the principles? They're all very simple, but they all make complete sense. And there's plenty of resources out there for a person who is, just wanting to dabble their feet into it and get a basic understanding of it, which will help you tremendously. You don't need to go out and spend a bunch of money and go and put yourself into a permaculture design course, which, can run you a good chunk of money. I think it would be a good idea if you decided, to do that. It would certainly benefit you, but you don't need to do that in order to have the basic understanding of these concepts. And another thing that I would say would probably benefit somebody as well is get somebody with a set of eyes who can make a recommendation for you based on setting your property up. So somebody who's steeped in, consulting. There's people out there that do consulting, and it can save you a lot of money potentially. So that's something that I think from the standpoint of hindsight, I might have benefited from and done maybe differently. What do you think?
I would say one of the things, when we moved in this house right at the very end of 2000, and the property next door was for sale. And I really, really wanted to buy it. But that would have been taking on 2 mortgages, and we opted not to. And to this day, I look, but it also came up for sale again. Would you say 10 years ago?
Yeah.
About. And we looked at it and we let it go a second time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, now, we have neighbors that they're nice, but their animals get out, and it would have just been nice to actually own it. But it's taken.
Yeah. That's a huge mistake, quite honestly. We should have done what we needed to do. And it wasn't that we couldn't afford to do it. We just didn't want to saddle ourselves with another mortgage because we had plans on, paying this place off and doing the retirement thing and all those sort of things. So it was just an oversight on our part and not realizing that we could have purchased that piece of property and it would have been ours. And the benefit of doing that is it's not only another investment opportunity, but now you get to choose who your neighbors are and you get to expand your area. It's just I don't know. It is definitely a mistake that we made. I just wish it was something that we could have seen a little bit clearer at the time. But, I guess we're bringing this up now so that if maybe somebody who's listening to this has the opportunity, don't pass on that opportunity. If you can at all swing it, you'll probably be better off because property is only going to go up, generally speaking, unless you get in at the wrong time. But, eventually that property is going to be, worth more than probably you purchased it for, unless you're, just right at the top of the market or something before it crashes.
I don't remember exactly how much they were selling it for, like 180,000.
It's crazy.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And now it's like 500,000. So yeah, it was a mistake.
Yeah. It's a huge mistake. It's because it's the same size parcel as ours. It's 22 acres, and it would have just expanded our property, doubled in size. Plus, again, we could have rented that out. We could have, Airbnb'd it. We could have done all kinds of different things. We could have had a family member decide to move into that space, and it was just, it was a mistake on our part for sure. One of the areas that I think that I've also had to make some adjustments to is just reevaluating the flow of my property. And what I've done recently is adding gates in places to help with that. Basically being able to move a little bit smoother from place to place. Because when I started, hey, I'm going to do it this way, and this is what it's going to be. And you don't think that maybe, things are going to change. And so I'm adding gates now. And I think that could have been eliminated if the planning was more appropriate at the start. I recently just pulled out a bunch of fence that had been there for 20 years. And partially the reason why, I left it in so long is because it would have been a real hassle for me to pull it out. But thankfully now I've got a piece of equipment, a tractor. And what would have taken me weeks, if not longer, I was able to get done in an afternoon, just popping these, cement pipes that I had put in 3 foot in the ground, these corner posts and the braces that I put in years ago. To dig that out by hand would have taken me forever. And so now I was able to just pop that out, and I've been readjusting the flow, which makes more sense on my property. And I think that's again huge, but it all goes back to understanding, that expansion potentially, and not boxing yourself into a corner. So, I think also another thing that I probably would have changed is the gates that I actually have put in on this property. I may have mentioned this before in another episode, but the gates that I put some in that were 4 feet wide, and just a walk gate, right? And then I had a couple that were 6 feet wide. Well, those are fine if you're taking a wheelbarrow through there. But what happens when you finally decide, hey, I want to add a tractor, a piece of equipment? Doesn't work that good. And so
you got to skinny them in.
No, it's not going to work. So if you were to at minimum put in a gate, if you're going to put in a gate, put in a minimum of 8 feet. That's going to get most farm tractors, which, 40 to 60 horse, you're going to be able to get through an 8-foot gate. And so it's just kind of, important to think outside of what you're currently envisioning. Like, think about expansion beyond what you're doing today, because you never know. I actually did put in a lot of gates around here, and I'm thankful for that. So I put in extra gates in different places, but the places that I need gates now, there's not gates because I didn't plan it to be what it is now. But that's what I've been working on in the last, probably 2 months. And it's just making it so nice. I can move around this place in a circle now, instead of like, oh, there's just a fence there, and now I got to go all the way back over here to get to the orchard. Now I can just pop open a gate, walk right in. Then I walk out over onto this side, and it's just the flow. It just makes so much more sense. And so, also too, man, setting up the corrals that I built around here. My animals move through them great. I've got great flow with my animals. I just open up a gate and boom, I just run them from this corral to that corral, and it's like there's a circle. But my tractor don't fit. And again, I'm back in the pen with a shovel, a pitchfork, and a wheelbarrow. Whereas if I had been thinking that, maybe I'll set this up so that if I ever decide to have a tractor, I can just open that gate and scrape the manure and the bedding out, and then I'm done. But now I'm, it's just one of those things. It was like hindsight. You're like, man,
It's keeping you young.
Oh, well, I don't know if it's keeping me young. It's keeping me broke off is what it's doing.
Slowing you down so I can keep up with you.
Yeah. Oh, man. Let's see what we're doing here. Let's see here. I'm going to try to get caught up on some of this. Yeah.
So while you're doing that, maybe I can tell about some others of mine.
Oh, hold on a second. Let me get to this question, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Let's see here. Would you say how many acres you have on your homestead? We are on 22.5 acres right now. And Yeah, I suppose it's enough for what we want, from the standpoint of what we're doing at this point. I would say that if I would want more acres. The nice thing about having more acres is you don't always have to use all those acres. As long as you have your boundaries and your fences and stuff like that put in so people know where to stop and to stay out of, then, you don't have to do anything on that zone 5 or that zone 4 that's way out there, but you've got that buffer of space, and that's one of the really nice things. But yeah, we are on 22.5 acres. Let's see. You're gonna have to keep track of some of these comments. I'm not doing a great job. I apologize for that, guys.
I need new glasses. I can't hardly even read those.
Yeah, I know. Let's see here. Okay, hold on. Jeff Lawton's a good permaculture channel. Talks about many solutions for land issues. Yeah, no, he's kind of like the guru, man. He's one of the guys that's like people really look up to in the space, and he's super sharp. And yeah, Jeff Lawton is kind of the man. He's got a lot of great ideas, and he's awesome as far as from the standpoint of what he does within the permaculture sphere, for sure. So right, in my case, 12 feet. Let's see here. Google Earth has tools that you can do a lot of design work for your property, running 800-foot lines with a measuring wheel versus doing it online. Yeah, that's interesting, man. I mean, it's of benefit for us for sure. I think there's some technological tools out there that are going to benefit us, but it's just an interesting thing that we're at a place where, you can look at your property, but so can anybody else. It's kind of a weird thing. Let's see, where was I at here, if you don't mind? So what were you going to say, Rebecca?
Oh, I was going to say, one of the things that we did was, when we were updating the house a little bit, was we took out our corded phones. And that is a huge mistake because we can't get any back. And then it kind of snowballed into other problems as well. We wanted to put an extra control panel for our alarm, but it has to be a battery operated one and a Wi-Fi. So instead of it being a control panel where you can just type in what it is that you need or push for fire or police or what have you, you have to hold it, which if there's somebody in the house, it makes a noise. It makes a loud beeping noise for it to come on, which kind of defeated the purpose of why we wanted to put the extra control panels in the house to begin with.
Yeah.
And then the other is that we also put in new windows, not thinking. So this is also related to the alarm system. On the top of the windows is a little magnet area that it makes the connection for the alarm to work. So it's a hardwired thing. And the people putting the windows in didn't know. So it's just solid. So it makes no connection. Again, we're back to doing the external little Wi-Fi wireless little remotes by the windows. And then those are kind of a pain because they go off. So
yeah, these are some minor details, but they are kind of a problem,
well, we can't really change them unless we want to go back and we want to change the windows. The beauty of it is that we still have a third of the windows to change.
Right.
And now we've learned that we need to have the alarm person here.
Yeah, I think
while they're doing the windows.
I think the thing that was the most problematic, I would say, of those things you just mentioned was the phone lines, because you can't get them to come out and put in an actual landline anymore. Now, if we had not done that, we could still have a landline. They're not really like making people not have those yet, but they're not really working in order to get you set up for that sort of thing. But it was stupid on our part. We had 2 phone lines in this house, and we're like, yeah, we don't even use those anymore. We're just using our cell phone, which was dumb.
Now, the fun part to it is one of the lines was really close to the mental health services. And so I would get calls and they would want to tell me their problems. And I would say, this isn't mental health. You don't tell me. And they would continue to talk and tell me their problems. So that was kind of fun and interesting.
Yeah. HIPAA violation. Yeah. Don't say no more. Dee Muller says, I have calculated that it takes 3 lifetimes to develop a proper permaculture homestead. Yeah. Yeah. You have to just be willing to, really adhere to those principles and think a lot about the ethics of permaculture. There's been a lot of changes from my standpoint of how I view the property, for sure. Not just being a consumer all the time, but learning how to actually put back into this land, I think has been a huge way that, for years, that's all I was a consumer. And I was just taking from the land instead of realizing that I can look at things now as a resource and keep them here on this property, whether that be the biomass that I can turn into biochar or the leaves that I can take and make compost out of, which is going back into the earth to grow food. I mean, those are just some very simple and basic things that, having that shift in mindset can help to change the way you look at your property. Let's see here.
Did I ever, before you move on with the one phone line, did I ever tell you that I would get faxed death certificates as well?
Oh, wow. From that mental health place?
And I would call and I would say, you probably shouldn't be sending me these things.
Yeah.
And I would still get them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, just set your property up in a way that makes sense so that, like, as you age too, I think it we could be doing a much better job of that, because depends on how long we're going to be here, but you get to a point where the workload starts to affect you. And if you have an injury or you're some way less than physically capable, you shouldn't have a workload that you've set yourself up for that you can't sustain if in fact you age into the property. So I think that's really an important thing to consider. I'm currently dealing with, like, right now, for example, in the chicken yard, I've got yards of material that need to be moved out of there. And because of the confines of that yard and how I've set it up, and I never anticipated having a piece of equipment or potentially adding it into the future, I should have actually set it up, the chicken yard, for that possible expansion, but I didn't do that. So again, that's another kind of hindsight on my part that I wished maybe I had considered. The tractor, I think, as well, is another thing that is hindsight. I wish I would have done that sooner. And, I guess only because I'm realizing what a game changer it's actually been for me to have a piece of equipment that's absolutely a force multiplier. And I'm able to get things done around here safer, more efficiently, faster with less energy. And I don't know. I just think it's important to set yourself up for that potential. So even if you don't see it in your future, right? Don't limit yourself by saying, well, I can't afford that, or, I don't want one of those. But, your priorities may change and your finances may change, and you may find yourself deciding to add it at some point. And then if you do, you'll already be set up with the infrastructure to accommodate it. That's kind of what I'm trying to drive at here. I would say this is probably one of my bigger regrets right now. And that's, I would have approached this, I guess, a lot differently, but privacy is a big concern of mine. And I think it is for a lot of people, right? When you're on your property, you want your privacy. And I would prefer that when I look out, I didn't see other people's homes, and they're not looking at my home. I would just prefer that. But our home is visible from the road, and our property line passes, up. Our property boundary is right along a public road. And this really wasn't that much of a consideration for me years ago, but I've definitely noticed an increase in the traffic flow in this area. And that's been a problem for me.
We're visible from the road, but we don't sit right on the road.
Oh, no, we're not on the road, but people can see my house. And again, I would prefer they didn't. Obviously it would be more advantageous to select a property from the start that had that privacy already built in, but we didn't do that. And I really should have probably been a little bit more proactive years ago in trying to establish some kind of a privacy screen by planting trees and shrubbery and stuff like that. That's going to help to, provide that privacy. Right?
Yes. However, when we did buy this place, the beginning of the road, there were no homes, and there were signs that they were going to develop. So, I mean, we knew that the developments were coming in, but there were not as many houses as there are now.
Yeah. Things change, right? Obviously, there's just a lot more traffic on this road, and it just bothers me. So I think that had I had to do it over again, that would have been a much bigger consideration of mine from the start. And I would have been a little bit more insistent upon that in selecting this property. Right?
I think that was directed at me.
Yeah. It kind of was, and I'm not complaining or whatever about our decision or anything. I'm just saying that had I known what I know now, things would be different, because I think that privacy is a really important thing.
Yes.
For me, it is. I mean, I grew up not around people. So when I'm around people, I like people, but I like people to not be around me when I don't want them to be around me. I like my privacy. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, I think, did you have any other regrets, in other words? Any other things that,
not that can't be changed.
Yeah.
It would cost a lot of money to make those changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't, but we have spikes in our backyard where our deck was once, and it's a concern of mine because
I'll take care of them tomorrow.
You will not. They've been there for how many years?
Are you challenging me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take care of them tomorrow. Because Dean Mullis says regrets are knowledge acquired. And that's very true, I think. I think that's very true. London agrees on the privacy issue, right? Yeah, I grew up that way. My dad told me, he says, you can always go to the city, but it's always nice to come home and not be where there's other people just staring down upon you. And I grew up that way, and I just love being out in an area that's rural, that doesn't have a lot of traffic and noise and all of those sort of things. And so I think most people probably that listen to this podcast, listen to this live stream, are of that same mindset, I believe. Even though there's people that listen who probably live in the city, and they're just fine with that. Nothing wrong with that. You still have your privacy, right? You still get to pull your shades down at night. You still get to close your door, and you're kind of in your space. Privacy is a thing we all need. We all need to have that. And so I just prefer it a little bit further out than maybe some people have become accustomed to.
Although I still think that we sit at a pretty good place. When you go into town and you see how crowded it is, and I don't know what you want to call them, the homeless kind of dragging around or whatnot, it's nice to come home. Oh, because they're not out here.
Not yet. They better not be. I don't think the neighbors are gonna put up with that. But they got no reason to be out here. Yeah. Sandra says, well, I'm reclusive, but room is running out. Everyone moving north, but north is cold. North is cold. Yeah, it generally is when you head toward the poles. And south is cold too sometimes. Yeah. Spike removal. We need a video. Now that's going to take about like, I don't know, 7 minutes with a Sawzall. It won't be much of a video.
Well, that depends if it actually happens. They've been there for a long time.
Right. Yeah. Hilltop Blue says the big issue with us is we share a driveway. I would never do that again. I think that's a mistake, man. I do. I have a problem with that. If I own something, I want to own it. I don't want to be sharing something with somebody that I'm not like related to or I'm in love with. Right. I mean, that's a huge thing. When we actually looked at property before we bought up here, we were looking at a piece that was like 100 acres and there was another parcel that was about 70 some. And, I kind of liked the property. I thought, oh, this is cool, man. I could dig this out here.
Now, mind you, there was no house on it. It was just property.
Yes, true. But we can do our own thing and build our own house. That's cool. But they had this thing in there that was like kind of a homeowners association where, the roads in that area where you have to pay to have the roads maintained, which I wasn't like super uncool with, because there's a lot of roads, a lot of dirt roads that need to get graded and bring in base rock or whatever. I wasn't super uncool with that. But what I was uncool with is there was this nice lake on my property, my property. And other people in the area who had parcels had access to that lake. And I'm thinking, no, that ain't happening, dude. You're not coming onto my property just because that lake is there. And that's why we didn't buy the property, because I'm not cool with that whole shared, thing. But I totally get it.
And for me, being a lifeguard and teaching swimming and swim team all of my life, I didn't like that because I foresee somebody drowning. It's on our property. And who's going to be liable for it?
Of course.
Is it going to be everybody that's in that area, or is it going to be the person that the lake's property that it's on?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not okay with any of that. Yeah, I think those are just some of the mistakes that we can look back on and say, maybe we would have done things a little bit differently. And I'm sure we'll continue to make mistakes, right? But the most important thing, I think, is that you learn from your mistakes so you don't repeat them. And I think that's kind of why I think this is important to maybe just share this, is that we've made mistakes and we're going to continue to do so.
And I would say never go through Home Depot for your flooring.
Yeah, wrong move. Get an actual, like a flooring company or a flooring place and have them do it, because the monkeys they hired to come in here and do this, man, we weren't happy about that either. But that's ticky tack stuff, and
it is, but it's something that should have gone in a week or less, and it took months. Months.
Yeah. I think another thing that I will mention is that I look back on some of the opportunities that I had to capitalize on cheap resources when I had the opportunity, thinking that I would have the chance to secure those resources in the future. But turns out I made a mistake. Yeah, I had an opportunity to get as much of this pipe as I wanted. I could get it at 75 cents a foot, and it was 6-inch in diameter. Some of those lengths were 25 feet long. And I used a lot of it to build some of my fencing around here, putting in some of my corner braces and bracing and stuff. And then also I used it to build some, smaller animal enclosures and things like that from standpoint of structural support for those enclosures. And I had actually planned on putting up a pole barn that would have been like 20 plus feet high, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20 to 30, feet or maybe even more. And I was actually starting to draw up some plans with me and a guy. I was going to do that with Daniels, and he was going to help me out with that. We were going to get an ag permit, just put up this pole barn. But, I passed on all that material, but I mean, that material at 75 cents a foot, that would be, I could sell that for so much money today if it was here on this property sitting here, or I could utilize it as a resource. And so I just think that it's, kind of a foolish thing to pass on whenever you have property and you see a valuable resource. It's probably a good idea and a good deal to pull the trigger on it, because at some point you're going to, possibly use that. Which is not to say to just bring any old bullshit on your property and create Sanford and Son, but that was a pretty good deal that I passed on, man. I could have got all that pipe and I'd have been set. I could have sold that. I'd have been like making money. I turned around and 10x my money or at least 5x it. Right. So
what were you thinking?
I don't know, man. You know how it is. You change, priorities change. I think what it is you get all these ideas that you think about, you want to do. And then all of a sudden something else comes into your life that you think, oh, this is now more important. And I'm going to let that kind of thing go. And, there's always something. And so I think that's what I was thinking. And I just kind of let it go. But
so in hearing all of this, I would still say that this is my favorite house that we've owned.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy it. I have no desire to sell it. I like the room that it has. If in event that there is something that happens, our children actually could bring their families and
Mm-hmm.
have a place that's secure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of think about.
Yeah, it's good to have a home base, I mean, it's cool to downsize and all that. And we don't need a house that's this big with this many rooms. But again, it's nice that if, people needed a place to stay and stuff, it wouldn't be that impactful for us. So, if we were to sell this place and then all of a sudden something were to happen, then we would look back upon that as a hindsight. Oh, gee, wish we had our other place,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I got no regrets at all. Dean asks, was that oil fill sucker rods? And the answer to that is no. What those were was structural support for tilt-up slabs. And those are like 30 feet long, if not longer, I think some of them, where they put up these tilt-up slab buildings, and then they attach them to the tilt-up slab, and then they've got a jack on the other end that, anchors it to the ground. And if those things get dinged or damaged in any way, just a little ding in them, they have to get rid of them, because they have to be completely blemished, essentially, because they are structural support and it has to pass through OSHA and all this other stuff. So a lot of this pipe, some of it, would have a little bend section in it or something. You just cut that off. And then some would just have a little ding in it, and you'd see where they circled around the little ding, and that whole pipe had to just be gone. But the dude that was getting it for 30 cents a foot, and he was selling it to me for 75. And I was just sucking it up. I'm like, oh, this is great, man, for building fence around here and, all that. But I should have just glommed onto a bunch of it. And that was a mistake, but that's what it was from. I think, Dean says that those are not junk piles. Those are resource depositories. And I agree with you to some extent, but there comes a point where, stuff starts getting pretty cluttery, and I'm not a real big cluttery guy. I've got a lot of stuff, but it has to be kind of organized, or I can't handle that, man. But yeah, I should have grabbed that pipe for sure. I've been a victim of being cheap. I regretted passing on good deals over the years. Yeah. I sure like when I get a good deal, though. It just makes you feel like you won, right? That corn that I just got, that's a victory right there. That's gonna whenever you do that, it just feels like a huge win. Yep. And I agree, Sandra. Life is short and family is important. I think it's kind of the most important thing, quite honestly, when you really step back from it and you look at all your things and your accomplishments and your, what you've done in your life and all those sort of things. And then when it all comes down to it, who's going to be there for you when you need them? It's not everybody else. It's just generally speaking, those closest to you, your family. So I fully agree with you on that.
I agree as well.
Yeah. So I think we're going to get to the last segment here, which is we're going to touch on that liberal or conservative. Nobody even guessed on that, man. So
no guesses.
I didn't see anybody guessing on that. I don't
somebody.
know. Yeah, you got to
somebody jump in and guess.
Right.
It just takes one.
Right. And the question again was Israel has, or not the question. This is the quote. And the person was quoted as saying, Israel has the right to shell Palestinian hospitals and schools out of self-defense.
Okay, we're waiting.
Well, what do you say? Nobody has anything to say except you. What do you say?
Yeah, I know. I said it's a liberal.
Why do you say it's a liberal?
For me, it just sounds like something that a liberal.
Do you have any reason why? Or you have disdain for liberals and you're just going to pin all negative things toward liberals? Well, why? Do you have a reason?
It just seems like they are pro-war these days.
You don't think that
bombing and it's not to say that Republicans aren't.
You don't think Lindsey Graham isn't pro-war?
Oh, I'm sure he is.
All these people that keep funding all these wars, you don't think that there's conservatives that are pro-war in foreign lands?
I'm sure they are. They're a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, guys, I'm not going to drag this out any longer. The person that said that was actually a liberal. Surprising.
See, I was right.
You were right. And you know who it was? She's an ethnic minority, Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. So just so you know, that's what your people are saying. I'm with her. Oh, you mean Hillary? Yeah, a lot of people were with her.
The property on the other side of us,
right?
There was a gentleman who purchased that, and that was, I told, there's two pieces, and in total, I think they're together 650 acres.
It's
or something
like 700.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, there's one guy, and his logo looked just like
the
Hillary's.
Yeah, with the little arrow through it. It was an H.
H with an arrow through it. I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Hayes Ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did look like Hillary.
And I thought, dude, that is not good.
Well, not around these parts. It might fly down somewhere else, but anywho. Well, hey guys, I'm gonna wrap it up here, and I really appreciate everybody hanging out with us tonight. As always, it's been kind of fun. It's been good to be back. And then I don't know what we're doing next week, but we'll jump on here, I think, and figure something out. But let's see here. Yeah. They shouldn't be using schools and hospitals to protect their missiles. I just think that's an evil thing, man. I don't know how you can justify saying that it's okay to bomb a hospital when those people haven't done anything. Why don't you go and drop bombs on where you need to drop bombs, but not people who aren't engaged in combat? That's like a war crime. I don't know how that's even like morally justifiable on anybody's behalf. But again, maybe that's just me.
Maybe they feel that's a win.
Yeah, I guess,
That's a sick thought.
I guess. Yeah. Uniparty. Yep. The Uniparty's strong. It's alive and well.
There was a guy.
Thanks, Sandra. Appreciate it.
All the way back. Said he was from Iraq. I don't know if you ever read that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think he was asking something about chickens that I said I was going to get to, and I never did. I don't know, man. Let's see here. I don't want to drag this out too much.
Right there. Right.
Yeah, he says he's from Iraq, near Palestine. No need to bring politics into this. Yeah, politics it's in everything,
It's
man.
everywhere.
Yep. Well, right on, guys. I think we're gonna like get on out of here. But I do appreciate, as always, hanging out. And again, we're all out of soap, but she's working hard to get it back, and we do still have some comfrey available. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, check us out at porterhouseandteal.com. And remember, you can catch the rebroadcast of this live on Audible, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google, at least until next week. And then we'll see what happens from there. But thanks again. And remember to go out. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, London, hang in there. We're going to send you an email.
Yeah. We'll let you know what's up, dude. Appreciate the support again, as always. But yeah, go out and be better tomorrow than you were today. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.